Hello, and welcome to Collaboratory, the show where Mike Morris, the illustrious Mike Morris, improvises an animatic with a little help from our audience. And hopefully we learn about the craft of storyboarding along the way. So this is an improv art stream that runs on audience suggestions. Mike, what kind of props are we looking for today?
Well, again, welcome back. We're looking for, what we're always looking for is a couple of characters, a setting, and a conflict. Those are three things that make our collaboratory work. So bring the heat, folks. What have you got?
Yeah, throw your suggestions in the chat, and whatever you type might show up on screen.
So welcome, Chris. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? So this is my good friend Chris, who I worked with for what we worked together for a year or better?
Yeah, probably a year. Yeah.
Yeah, so introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Sweet. So I'm Kristoffer Molinari. I'm originally from upstate New York. I grew up in the woods there by the Great Lakes. I am a storyboard artist by trade. I've been storyboarding for, how long have I been storyboarding for? Probably coming up on 5 years at this point. So I have, before that I was doing kind of 3D CG stuff. So I was doing texturing and modeling. I did a internship at Pixar for that stuff, and then I switched gears into story because I love storyboard and I love drawing. So I've worked in mostly TV so far. I've worked on a lot of Charlie Brown specials, some Snoopy and Woodstock stuff. I storyboarded on the Sonic Prime show on Netflix, a little bit of Lego Ninjago. Recently, I finally got to storyboard on a feature. It's called Sneaks. It's coming out next year. I'm not sure who's distributing it, but it's about some sneakers that get lost in New York, and it's a really fun show. So I think the writers on it were the writers on Princess and the Frog, if I remember correctly. So this is a fun show, and I work on a show called Tunnel Twins, which is where I met Mike.
Yep. Very cool. So, Chris, now I have a question for you. I know usually the guest host asks me questions, but I've been turning the tables on people lately. So, Chris, you said you were texturing modeling before and working in the CG environment. What was it about storyboarding that made you want to just ditch all of that stuff and draw? What was the impetus behind you making the switch?
So originally, before I was doing animation, when I was in college, I actually started college doing physics and mathematics, and I had basically no drawing experience. And I took one of those general requirement classes. It was called Drawing for Non-Majors, and I had this apotheosis moment where we were doing a still life drawing, and I had to draw this bone, and I just had so much fun drawing this cow femur. And I was like, I love to draw. And so kind of what fueled my switch into animation was the fact that I just loved to draw. And when I got into animation, I was doing more of the CG stuff because it was a better fit with my technical background. But after working at it and doing it for a while, it wasn't filling that hole, that desire to create, particularly with just drawing. I'd always loved gesture drawing, and really I just wanted to draw for my job. And so
sure,
that's mostly what made the switches. Just I wanted one of the jobs where I was doing more drawing than programming per se, because texturing was a lot of shader programming, and I just wanted to be drawing all day. And that's basically what did it, to be honest. I do love telling stories as well. The visual storytelling is real fun. So
yeah, I know we've had a lot of long conversations about story and about what makes a story good, and about kind of the philosophies behind storyboarding in general. And so I feel like when you're doing a storyboard that you need to embody kind of a point of view, whether it be you're coming at something from the point of view of a character, or you're coming at something from the point of that omniscient third person camera, or whether it's a POV or different things like that. I think we've had a lot of good conversations about the embodiment of character. And despite the fact that, the theme for this month, Toon Boom Wide, is ink and paint and like cleanup stuff, I think that really what we're trying to get into in storyboarding is not necessarily those fine details, although there can be stuff that you're preparing for animation that has to be kind of a specific thing, and so you spend a little bit more time with that. But I think what we're really talking about is like that high level stuff of entertainment value, right?
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. I guess it's really figuring out like what are you focusing on in the storyboard, right? And then maybe like cleaning up that particular aspect is probably the way I would approach like pen and ink and cleanup in the context of storyboards, right?
Right. And there's also like the Spumco style, or SpongeBob cut in, where things are like super detailed.
That's true.
And stuff that every so often you'll need to do for certain effects. But I would say those are a little bit farther in between anymore than what we get now. But I came from an animation background. Like I always wanted to be a 2D animator. I wanted to be one of those guys that was was going to go to Disney Feature and work there for 30 years. But I realized that, working on scenes and stuff, although I enjoyed it, I kind of wanted to be more, I felt like there was more creativity than just the acting part in story. Like I wanted to be in that space where I was, sort of telling the characters what to do, not necessarily how they're supposed to be doing what they're doing. So I think that's kind of what made me get into the transition from being, on the animation side. And I still really enjoy animation. Don't get me wrong. It's an incredible skill to cultivate. And I feel like they're reciprocal too. Like the better animator you are, I feel like the better you'll be at the actual filling out of your story, because technically you'll just be that much more savvy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd agree with that for sure. Yeah, no, I think for me the fun part of the storyboarding is I love the brainstorming too. Just all the brainstorming collaboration that happens in the storyboarding, and just getting to go through a ton of ideas real quick and like seeing if they work, seeing if they don't, and you really see how it like builds to something better.
Yeah.
Which for me, honestly, I love the process so much. And so in this kind of the storyboarding area, you are in the middle of the process,
Yeah.
You're in the middle of getting new designs, changing designs, the script's changing, it's not changing, you're reboarding scenes, and that's all part of it. And that's what's it's a little chaotic, but it's a lot of fun because of that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I know that we've been in story meetings and stuff before where we've been kind of like coming up with new jokes and coming up with new and interesting ways of presenting things. And, there's a certain energy in a story room that I feel like is absolutely invigorating to kind of be there and be part of that particular type of energy.
Yeah, I'd agree 100%. Yeah, so we're still looking. This is to the chat out there, all of you watching. If you have any suggestions about characters, setting, conflict for Mike's storyboard, feel free to throw them in the chat. We can get Mike started.
Yeah.
I know he's waiting with bated breath as to what kind of crazy things you guys are going to make him bored.
I mean, I'm hardly breathing right now. It's been 8 minutes and I've taken 3 breaths.
So yeah, I don't know. What would you say, Mike, in terms of cleanup? What have you found in your storyboarding jobs in terms of like how a question I get a lot from students that are asking me for like advice on the portfolio, whatever, is like, how clean should my boards be? That's something I hear a lot, and I wonder if you have any thoughts about that.
Well, I would say that, again, and this kind of has become a lot of my blanket answer for a lot of stuff, is it depends on the production that you're on, or it depends on who's going to follow you up. You know what I mean? Like, if you're boarding a short that you're going to animate yourself, you don't need to have it super clean because you know what you're doing. You know what that drawing is, unless you're like one of those people who like you write and then you can't read your own handwriting later. You're like, what did I do? And you don't understand exactly what that was. Like, if you are like that, then you might need to leave yourself some better instructions. But I feel like if you're doing your own short, then you can be a little bit more loosey-goosey with your drawings, where they don't have to be super clean. They just have to tell the story. Whereas if you're working in an environment where that storyboard has to then go to a layout department, or that storyboard is then going to an overseas animation unit, you need to be a little bit more specific about things. Not necessarily to where you're cleaning things up to animation quality, where everything's like super on model and to the point at which it's practically animated. I don't think you need to do that, especially because it's very time consuming. So it's often better to find that nice shorthand that is a combination of being loose and fluid, but being solid enough in the proportions that it matches what would eventually be an animation. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, for instance, when I was working on DuckTales, like, you could have the, this sort of squared off heads that the nephews would have, Like, for instance, this would be Dewey. And you'd have this, general body shape that the boys all shared. And that would be clean enough. Minus this little weirdo spike sticking out of his elbow. Like that to me would be clean. And obviously I'm using like a highly textured brush for that, but like, you could get away with this kind of thing. Say you're Louis now. Louis always has that sort of like, slumped over, lazy, but still like very smart kind of thing. So those were just examples of different levels of cleanliness for something. I mean, you don't want to turn in something that's like, so scribbly that no one's going to be able to understand what's going on. This is fine for like a thumbnail pass for your own self. You've got like stuff everywhere and it's so scribbly that like you can kind of tell what's going on, but it's like, is that an arm? Is that a wing? Like, what the heck are you looking at? Yeah. Like, what are we doing here? So there has to be a certain level of detail to be legible, but you don't need to get so far into it that you're, doing full animation drawings, right? You're not doing necessarily character layout, although some places would love it if you did that. And some places require that you do really, really clean drawings. I know that some people that have worked on shows like Family Guy, they want like pristinely clean drawings at the end of the storyboard process. Where I worked on some other stuff where they were just like, we don't have time for you to clean up a lot of drawings, so let's not do that. We're going to do something rough, and then we'll just give them really good descriptions of what should be in there and really detailed model packs. So let that do the work, and you don't necessarily have to clean everything up because we need fast turnaround times.
Yeah. I'd probably say, like, for portfolios, if you're a student in your portfolio, clean enough that everybody understands what's going on is kind of what is the advice I would give. A good litmus test for me is, like, pitch it to your mom or dad or your roommate, and do they understand what's going on? Then it's probably clean enough. I know sometimes if the boards are too clean and too tight, people are gonna start asking other questions of, like, well, how long did it take them to do this? How long, how much time, and, like, are we going to be able to get this type of drawing in the week turnaround that we need, or is this like 3 months of work? So yeah, like Mike was saying, keep it loose but keep it clear is the kind of the gold standard.
Yeah, I would say so.
We've got a question coming in from Moonzap. It says, what can you do to color in if you don't have premium?
What can you do to color in if you don't have premium?
Does premium not have the automat tool?
For the measly price of a character suggestion, I will give you the answer to that.
Did you hear that, Moonzap? He wants a character suggestion. We have a suggestion from Artistic Kai. Hey, my name's Kai. My idea is a hybrid elf fairy who is torn between the elf world and the fairy world. She has to decide if she wants to travel to a world that will accept her or stay and help change her world to accept hybrids and get along. The setting is the forest.
The setting is she's a crusader. Okay, cool. Well, now to answer Moonzap's question. So coloring in, there's a couple different ways you can do it. And I'm just going to give you, let's do a small example right now. Let's see. The setting is a forest, right? So it's magical forest. We're probably in that zone of magical forest. So let's start off with, like, one of those, like, giant, like, trees, like the
a world tree.
Yeah, a world tree with that kind of a vibe. So where, like, everything kind of connects to this one giant lofty tree. And then there's, like, forest, like, surrounding it, some various, and we're not going to make this particularly super, super, super detailed because I've done that so many times in the Collaboratory, and it always just eats up a ton of time. So let's just keep it loose. Besides, forest can really get detailed really quickly.
What for the people watching, what are some of your favorite shorthands for drawing forests really quickly?
It's kind of like a fine line between like drawing trees and drawing clouds. I mean, you kind of have to have this irregular-ish pattern, So it depends on what kind of thing you're drawing. If you're drawing, like, more, conifers, a lot of the times you'll just have to do, like, this kind of a deal, Anyway, let's keep it on track with this particular example. And don't worry, Moonzap, we're going to get to your question. Just a moment. I haven't forgot about you. You are not forgotten. All right, so we've got this world tree kind of a setup, and let's do a new panel. We're gonna actually, before we do that, let's drop a little bit of a tone down on this. And I'm just going to get out one of these big marker brushes here and just lay down enough of a tone so where we feel like there's kind of something going on here, Like there's something special about this particular place that is out of the normal. Obviously, it's bigger than the rest of the forest, but still, you need a little bit of something to help it feel like it's prominent. Sometimes just a little bit of tone will do the trick. And if you want to get really fancy, then you can get out like some sort of scattering brush and fill in a couple of highlights, or like this is a star scatter type brush. I'm gonna turn the size of it down so it scatters a little bit smaller. So you got little highlights and stuff for just dragging the pen around a little bit. You can even up the brush size a little bit and get some bigger things in here.
Would you say it's worth spending a little bit more time on these establishing shots in your storyboards?
Yeah, sometimes it is, because you want to establish a tone and an environment that you can kind of suck somebody into. Because I've said it before, like we are not telepathic beings, so we need to relate things in a visual way. And so the more information that you can pack into something like this, I think the better. So let's duplicate this, and then we're going to get to that fabled question. So let's go back to our basic board setup, and I think we're going to have like let's get black brush. Let's go on a different layer. And we're going to have some fairy like fly in. And here's what we can do. We can kind of go back one level, and then we'll make it bigger so we can see kind of like the entry point a little bit better. And then, have her fly up and toward. Sometimes you don't necessarily need to like redraw everything, just a little bit of movement, just to see like the scale of this thing. Like, she is like a speck compared to how big this tree is. And sometimes if you go too small, you're gonna have to like fill it out a little bit. So you just have to give it a little bit of something, like an outline or whatever. If I was really being super careful with it, I would like zoom in as far as I could and try and outline it there. But, we don't really need to do that. So we've got this going in. And then we just, make the character disappear entirely. And cut to a new scene. I think inside the tree now, we're going to have, let's start with maybe like some sort of large branch. We'll put some bark texture on it a little bit. Again, we don't necessarily want to get super crazy with it. And then we'll put like, some tree leaves and different things behind it. So we see this is a kind of a protected environment, and maybe some sort of lamps and stuff that would be indicative of fairies. So like an acorn or something like that glows, that is held on by some other thing, whether it be a vine or a branch it's actually growing on, or some sort of thing to indicate the environment is special, it's unique, it's magical, right? So acorns can glow. We can put a little glow on that. If you really wanted to get fancy with it and clean that up, you could put a tone on the back, and then keep keep like a glow around it and use the tone to signify the glow instead of just, these lame lines around it that say, yay, glow, and have, let's put character here in the foreground. We're going to give her little cute ears. And let's give her some sort of like, I don't know, she's wearing like a flower for a hat. She's got some sort of like, leaf dress or something like that she's, made herself out of, plants that are just around. Maybe she's sweeping up or, doing something and she's got normal fairy wings. Now, to answer your question, Moonzap, now what I can do is either I can go on a layer below. If you don't have access to the auto matte feature, then what you can do is turn on your draw behind. And if you have this, like autofill, then you can just, draw a line around it. Sometimes I recommend drawing it in actual color so you can see it better because, the white on white doesn't necessarily help you see it better. And then it'll like fill in. And sometimes it's easier. We've done things like this in other episodes where, we wanted to track something a little bit better. Again, going back to the DuckTales example, we used to do this a lot on DuckTales where we would have each of the nephews and then Webby have their own individual colors, only they were more muted like this. So you didn't have this bright red, blue, and green, and then pink kind of assaulting your eyes. It was just a tint of that one color. So you could easily read at a glance, like, who was doing what. But yeah, just put it on a layer underneath and make that the sublayer. If you want to do layer motion later on, you can also put them inside of a group, so you can group selected layers and they put them in a folder. That way, if you were ever to use your transform tool, it all moves together. Okay, so now we've got this one character here, and we're going to move this to the other side. And then I'm going to grab this group with the two layers and copy those selected layers. It's going to delete the ones that are already here. Let's see, delete layers, and then paste the layers. So now I've got this going on, and I can, again, grab this whole group, and then I can start this character over here, and she's just kind of, brushing her way across. Just brushing off the tree branch. And as she is brushing off the tree branch, who should arrive? I'm going to put that on a different layer. Her friend, the half-elf fairy. And I was kind of thinking as you were describing that this sort of half elf, half fairy would have a rather significant size discrepancy. And be like super cute, and the ears would be like longer. It kind of looks like a weird like goblin, but right now, but I think once we add some hair, that'll be much better, and we'll give her like some sort of like feathery outfit where she's got some sort of cute look about her with the turned up little pixie nose.
The same teeny hat, though.
Yes. But she's a little bit big in the frame, so maybe we can shrink her down just a little bit because she is half fairy. But still, she needs to be like 3 or 4 times bigger than like everyone else. Kind of like how Will Ferrell's character in Elf is, where he's just like, if he hasn't figured out he's a human by now, like that kind of thing. So this is a landing pose, and we'll give her, this kind of cool dress, and she's got, I don't know, I kind of want to see like teeny little fairy wings, but we kind of established she had bigger fairy wings in the first part when we didn't know that she was like absolutely gigantic compared to everybody else. So we'll have the wings just kind of like up a little bit to reinforce this idea of her dropping down. So we have drop, land.
Is this her mom?
I don't know. Is it her mom? I mean, maybe this. You mean this small person?
Uh-huh.
The fairy?
Her friend.
Yeah, I mom or friend. I was thinking more on the side of friend, but could be the mom. Maybe we should even do like a couple little hairs, like, coming down like this. And then we can also give her a little bit more of a squash down. Extend those wings out a little bit. Boosh.
She brings a whole bunch of dust or something with her that negates all of the sweeping that had just been done.
Yeah, that's always fun. Or maybe like her landing basically like blows the other person like off of the branch. So we would have like, she lands, boosh, and then we would take a little bit of this. And then selecting these two together, Sometimes if you have, 2 layers kind of tied to one another, you can use the cutter tool instead of the other, and hit them both at the same time. It's not the most elegant solution, but it works. And then you just kind of like, fix up whatever's not really working afterward. For instance, I'll just make a quick selection of this color and then add it to my colors that I'll have. And then, oops, so I turn that off. Boop, like that. So comes landing, boosh. And the friend, in this instance, we're going to need a new drawing for the friend. Let's get the black. Oh, turn off the draw behind and the other. Sometimes you can, I mean, you can automate the process of not having to like turn on and off your brush stuff every time by just using the tool presets. And some of these tool presets I've used for like a long time, you know, so they work like pretty well.
Yeah, you can let me know if I'm getting your name right. Artistic. I realized it could be artistic Chi as well, not artistic Kai. I just assumed it was like a shortened, like a nickname of your first name, but it could be artistic Chi. She says, "Yep, fairy wings and elf ears." So you nailed what she was looking for, Mike.
Oh, great! I'm so glad.
I really like what you're doing here with the way that the elf fairy hybrid girl, she lands in, because with the prompt that we have, she's trying to decide between what world will accept her, right? And so like visually you're already telling us, at least from like as a storyboarder looking at this, you're visually telling us she doesn't quite belong here, but she has friends, so just visually we've already started like hammering that point home. One of the little themes of this prompt, I guess you could say. I don't know, Mike, would you say you did that on purpose, or is that just the years of experience?
Well, I think it's definitely purposeful, when you're looking for a character who doesn't fit into a specific environment, you're always looking for like, what's the difference? What's keeping them from blending into everybody else? And in this case, it's, a huge difference in size, So I think that's what you're looking for when you're doing like the sort of quintessential fish out of water story. That's what you're looking for. Is you're looking for what is the reason that this person feels like he or she is not welcome in this world, or is not, is not assimilating. I guess that's the right word. And some people tell stories about that sort of thing to drive certain points home. I feel like a lot of it gets used in stories about, discrimination, and then you realize either like, oh, that person was getting discriminated against, and now it's just because they didn't know that person, and they were just judging books by the cover. I think sometimes that gets a little bit heavy-handed or didactic. So again, I think it all comes down to character. It all comes down to character. Why does this character not fit in? In the case of, like, let's go back to the example of Elf, like Will Ferrell's Elf, right? He has all the mind and the inclination of somebody who was raised by elves and not somebody who was raised by humans, right? He doesn't have that sort of sarcastic, self-defense layer that so many people would have, especially when you see like his dad later on is very guarded and very like skeptical about everything. And in fact, is quite cynical, where, Buddy, he's not cynical at all. He's like, everything is surface level for him, like when he's explaining even to his love interest in that one, I can't Jovi, like he's like, he can't even describe how he's feeling, so he just tells her how he feels about her. I feel really hot when I'm around you, and I don't know what to do. My tongue kind of swells up, like he's very innocent. Whereas I think the dad would like, be like, well, I got to say something smooth here. I've got to win this girl over by, doing something clever. Like, it all comes down to character. And that's kind of the point in a lot of things is like, can you tell a story purely from a character point of view, or do you need to lean on sort of that sort of didactic quality to tell your story? And if you're having to lean on the didactic stuff too much, you might have weak characters. And so that's something that you might want to explore a little bit and get to know your characters that much more, so you're not necessarily telling a story that's I'm going to drive this point home because that's what the script says. You need to tell it from the point of view of the character, so we empathize with that character and we don't feel like we're being talked down to as an audience.
Cool. So she's coming in. Do you have any, on the going back to the inking and painting topic, I guess, do you ever find that like the brush that you're using matters? I guess, when do you use ink or a vector brush, or is there any deciding factor for you there?
I always try and go with a vector brush of some kind. I mean, I like the textured brushes. I really do, but they make your file sizes so much bigger. So I would say, like, if you're going for a specific, like, look and feel, absolutely go with the textured brushes. I mean, I couldn't see, like, a board coming from a features place that they've defended on, like, Photoshop stuff for a long time. I don't necessarily see a lot of that bleeding over into Storyboard Pro that wouldn't look the same. So in that case, go nuts. But it will increase your file size and sometimes will make your file a little bit more laggy. So there's always the trade-off. But again, I would say texture brushes for effect.
Yeah.
Not as a mainstay.
That's probably where I've used them the most. I would say the one time I've used a more textured brush than like just the basic vector brushes would, on a Peanut special we were working on, the director, he'd come from a more like physical 2D media background, and he hated how the vector brushes looked. And so he asked the entire team to use textured brushes so it had more of a hand-drawn feel to the boards when he was looking at it, because he said he was so distracted by it. My guess is that's an outlier, but it can happen. You never know.
There's one board artist I know who cannot stand to work with vector brushes because he feels like it is like drawing with like the weirdest ballpoint pen ever, or like a Sharpie marker with no texture to it, which everybody's got their own opinion. But
yeah, I think on my vector brush, I've jiggered with it a little bit, so the fall off feels a little bit more like a marker.
Yeah, I mean, diving into the brushes, I think, is a good thing to be able to do.
All right, Mike, we've got a question from 5 before. Do you have any tips on staying on model throughout the board?
Yes. I would say what you can do is create a stamp. Get your model, the model from the turnaround or whatever, and you create a stamp after vectorizing the black and white. So you'll do that, and you'll create, like one of these stamps like this, where there's several different ones in here. And for instance, this particular one, I'm just going to put it on this layer, has a stamp that makes it so you can have different poses, right? And you can actually stamp the turnaround in any pose and have that as a reference whenever you need it. You can also use it and turn a different color and draw right over it. So That's what I would say would be a good. That would be my tip and trick for that particular thing.
That's a good answer. What do I do? I would say I usually like make a stamp of the head at various angles, and then I'll just tack on the body. Try to keep it as on model as possible. Oh, something I know a lot of storyboard artists do is Mike actually just did it when he was drawing the little fairy that's recoiling from the bigger one that's landed, where you keep the head and delete the rest of it. I know that's something a lot of people do, where you just keep the head shape and delete the body and then redraw the body. And you could even put the old drawing on a different layer and lower the opacity, and then draw the new body over top of it, just so you know you're within the same range of size. I don't know if you've ever done that before, Mike, but
probably. Who can say anymore, Chris? Who can say anymore?
Yeah,
so right now I'm just adding in a little bit of a manual camera shake too. So in this one, I can go back to this camera frame and just, nudge that down a little bit. So we go from, and then I can just take these two camera keyframes, pushing 2, I can zoom in, and I'll just grab these two, copy them, and then paste them a couple of times. And then, spread them out so we get a little bit of a jagged, shaking camera motion. So when we play it back, it's boom. And then you can even take that, like all of these keyframes, and drag them out a little bit. Probably you need to, finesse all that a little bit so it feels good when you play it back. Anyways, so boom. And, generally you want to have like shake, 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 like you want it to shake fast and then slow down. So a lot of these keyframes in the front will be faster, more closer together. And then later on, they'll, mellow out by spreading them out over time. So yeah, boom. She gets thrown for a loop. Quickly realizes who it is and flies over. Oh, hello. How are you today? That kind of sweet, innocent, little unflappable friend who just, is unconditional love incarnate.
I feel like they need some names. If you want to name them in the chat, throw their names in.
Yeah, absolutely.
The big elf fairy girl and the teeny fairy. Otherwise, Mike's going to have to name them.
I will. I'll do it. But I would rather you do it than me do it. Okay, let's get a new panel in here. And I think we're gonna do a single, or maybe an over the shoulder shot. I think what we need to do right now is probably emphasize the relationship and have the big elf girl that's kneeling like this. Make her head even smaller. Nope. tool out there. And have her friend, keeping with the screen direction, and then hook up. So her friend's like right about here. We'll give her some, multiples on the wings. Some of that pixie hair. And again, these aren't going to be like super pretty drawings because, we're trying to go for storytelling, not necessarily pretty drawings.
Well, yeah, this is kind of like a pseudo thumbnail stage that you're doing right now.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, another question from live from 5 before. Have you guys used Storyboard Pro and Blender in a hybrid way for boarding? I have not, but I think Mike has.
Only in the most basic form. But, one of the things that's really cool about Storyboard Pro 24, the new version, is that there's a new shader for bringing in 3D objects. So, I think that a lot of storyboard stuff and 3D integration is going to become more and more prevalent as time goes on. So it's a good idea to learn it a little bit and at least be able to make like basic things, because 3D is not going away anytime soon. And, despite what people are going to tell you about their latest and greatest AI that's going to come in and destroy all, film processes as we know it.
Tell us how you really feel, Mike.
It's not how I feel. It's how they market it.
Yeah.
Is you'll never need to expend any effort again because the AI will do it all for you. But like, it comes at the cost of people not developing their artistic eye, which I think is, what else do you have if not your artistic sensibility, right?
Yeah, I would say from 5 before, now that I'm thinking about it, the most hybrid way I've ever gotten mixing two of them is I think once there was some scene, like an action scene I was storyboarding in a city environment. And so I created a very basic kind of previs layout in Blender. And I went and I captured screenshots within Blender and then uploaded those into Storyboard Pro. But I know Storyboard Pro has the capability to load models.
Yes.
3D models in. So you could possibly even create some type of 3D layout in Blender and then just load it into Storyboard Pro and board in that layout.
Yep.
Have you ever done that, Mike?
Again, only in its most basic form with like simple polygons. I'm not much of a 3D modeler. I know enough to be dangerous and to maybe split apart a model for a 3D printer, but so then we got so she's down there, and now we see that this enormity of person and different differentiation in size. I think we could even expand upon that further, but given that we don't have a ton of time to do this, I think it's probably important that we just keep moving on. So the introduction. Oh, hello, welcome back. And then we see that she's distraught. Just lower those brows down. She's the floodgates are about to go. We got those eyes are welling up with tears.
Do you have any thoughts on why she's so sad, Mike?
I think she's conflicted. She doesn't know what to do. She lives in two worlds and can't decide.
I was going to say it's because she got her first flower hat, but it didn't turn out quite the way she expected.
Well, I mean, sure, we could do that too, but I'm looking for more conflict, and that was the conflict is somebody who's having a hard time fitting into two places. So I think maybe I think what we should do right here first before we get too much farther in is I think we need her friend to pick up her hat. So how about we do this? We'll have her in this panel. Come right here. We'll just grab this little thing and have her grab her hat on her way over. And then she can put it back on her head.
Artistic Cheese said the fairy's name could be Sparkle, but you can come up with a hybrid's name.
The fairy's name is Sparkle?
Yep.
Okay. We'll call her Sparkle Cheese after Artistic Cheese.
And she said you can come up with the hybrid fairy girl's name.
No, that's not how this works. This is an improv art stream based on audience suggestion. So I'm sorry. I can't help you there. You got to help me instead.
That better be a good name.
Yeah, give me. I want nothing but creative gold.
You have to think of the hybrid between a fairy's and an elf's name. I'm not sure what that would be, but
I guess it all depends on what kind of elf you subscribe to, whether they help or return cursed rings to volcanoes, or if they bake cookies inside of a tree, or if they are workaholics in the North Pole. I mean, just what kind of elf are you into, Then we'll, of course, need to add this to the continuity of this character to have her hat on her head now. And if you want to, you can add like a little, subtle bob up and down. A lot of editors like that because it makes it so your character is not super static. Let's get a copy of this. Comes over, puts her hat on. What's the matter, dear? And let's cut to a single of her looking concerned. She's got her little hat on. And little teeny farriers to kind of like another avenue of differentiation.
Got another good question from 5 before.
Yeah.
How do you stay organized when boarding an episode? Do you have a way to stay on track?
Elaborate on that, please. Do you have a way to stay on track? It's called production. But I mean, if you're boarding something for yourself, I mean, you just have to kind of think about the beats of a script. Like, what beats do I have to hit and when? And then write that down, make a list. So you know, like, in this scene, my character's got to hit this beat or this story point. And then, work around those beats.
Yeah, it's kind of a vast question. I guess it just depends on what you mean by stay organized. Because generally you're given a script to work from. And so I'd imagine if you're boarding it, you know where you are in the script.
Yeah.
I tend to thumbnail. I don't know if is that part of your working process, Mike?
Generally, yeah. I mean, when I started out, I would just take the script and draw on the margins. And that usually helped me visualize stuff. But, sometimes when I'll board, I kind of do like what you do, Chris, is like, do the whole thing out in little thumbnails and then break it out into things. Like, I don't know if I'm sophisticated enough to just do that in the thumbnail view yet, but,
Yeah, I'm trying to find the way I stay organized is, do I have any lying around? I do a pass of what I call the me thumbnails, and they are just for me. They are for my eyes only. So that's just kind of the planning stage.
Yeah, I call that one my vomit pass.
Yep.
Because you're just like, bleh, get it down on the page.
Same deal. Yeah, so at least then you just get everything out and you know where you are. Oh, here's the clarification. If you have a 3-week schedule and a 14-page script, okay, so it's a timing, staying organized timing wise. What would you say, Mike?
3 weeks and a 14-page script. I would say, make your peace with God. You're going to be dead by the end of that. That's a pretty tight schedule.
That is. It depends on how many passes you want on that too. That is a lot of boards.
It comes down to the complexity of the script. How complex are the different scenes or sequences? If you can break that up into where it logically makes sense to break it up, so you have a drastic scene change, or where you go from your A story to your B story or something like that. That would be something that I would recommend, just being able to, split that up in a way where you can break it down into like bite-sized chunks, so it's not overwhelming in its complexity, that you can actually see yourself like, finishing it in a way that is, you just don't want to be like chasing after little things, or like getting distracted by going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. It's like when you're cleaning up a room, right? And you don't work from one end to the other end. You just kind of like pick something up, and you take something over there, and you pick something up and take something over there, and then it takes you like 5 times longer to clean up the room. Like, you want to make sure that you have things broken up into a way that you can accomplish them without needing to constantly be rethinking where and what you need to do next. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, 3 weeks. For a 14-page script, I guess it just depends on what's in the script too. Is it 14 pages of action? Is it 14 pages of choreographed music numbers? Or is it just 14 pages of dialogue? The way I'd probably handle something like that is break it up into 3 even chunks, and then you're just gonna have to set like daily goals for what you need to achieve by the end of each week. Would probably be it. I'd probably go like Mike was saying. I'd probably find the scene that's like the heart of the script, like the most important one, and make sure you have that scene just perfect. So all the themes are relying on that, and then maybe kind of orient everything else in the script towards reaching whatever that scene is. But then after that, yeah, it's just going to be a race between can you produce the panels per day that'll let you get through the script. And so I'd probably, if you have 3 weeks, I'd probably just break it up into 3 even chunks.
Yeah, and don't be precious with the drawings.
Yep. You got to make some compromises on a schedule like that, I think.
Yeah. Because you're going to have to be good with compromise. Like, I was telling a friend, so I was at a convention, right? And the Comic-Con Revolution in Ontario, California. It's a fun Comic-Con for those of you who are in the Inland Empire area, California. It's really well run. But anyways, we were doing marker drawings on stage, right? And one of my friends who was drawing there with me, like, he was struggling with the markers and he would like get out a pencil and kind of like sketch something in and then, do all that stuff. Anyways, I was just going straight for the markers. I'm kind of used to it from storyboarding and things like that. But he came up to me later and he's like, well, how do you draw in with markers like that? And it's like, you want to know the secret? You can't care. You can't care what happens. You just have to go with it. Like, if you get too precious with it, you're going to freeze up. And then you won't be able to make, you'll get nervous and your marker strokes won't work because you care too much and it's too precious to you. So like, you just have to kind of like cultivate that thick skin or just be a cold-hearted so-and-so, because if you get like too precious with stuff, then you're, like I said, you're going to get too nervous and you're going to freeze up.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat. It seems like from 5 before, he said for roughs. 3 weeks, 14 page for roughs. That actually sounds more reasonable.
Oh yeah, that's pretty standard.
That sounds pretty standard. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm still good with you, coming closer to God and everything, but that's not nearly the dire situation that I thought it was.
Yeah, that seems about normal. I'd say usually it's probably like a week per 5 pages of roughs is kind of an average.
Yeah.
An average trade-off. Sometimes it can be less. It just depends on the production, I guess.
It depends on the production and the budget the production has and how much time they're given, what the turnaround time is. Like, because if you're working for, something that's like a web series or whatever like that, you're probably not going to have a ton of time to do a lot, but you're probably also going to have a little bit of in-house animation that can pick up some of that slack. So then your drawings don't have to be particularly, fantastic, as opposed to like, you're going overseas with something. You have to be a lot more specific because, budget becomes an issue at that point. And you have to make sure that your drawings are really working well. And I just did not duplicate a panel that I should have. So I'm gonna have to redo some of these arms. I hate it when I do that. Do you do that sometimes, Chris? You'd like think you duplicated something and then you really hadn't, and you have to draw the thing over again?
Yes. Although the thing that I always do is I will think that I duplicated the panel and I'll delete out drawings to like change the pose, and I never duplicated the panel.
Yeah.
That happens to me all the time. And then I'm just like, no, I lost the other drawing, and I pray that I haven't done enough that my undos can make it back to what the original drawing was. Usually I'll just copy the new drawing and then undo until I get to the old one and then just paste the changed pose. That's what happens to me a ton.
All right, so let's do this where she uses her hat, and her hat actually doubles as an umbrella, which gives us the impression that this is not the first time that this has ever happened.
All right, we have a recommendation, Mike, from VJ.
Yeah, what's up, VJ?
Quinn and Maeve are the names she recommends.
Quinn and what?
Maeve. Maeve.
Okay. Well, let's call the hybrid girl Quinn, because that sounds like it could be like a high. I don't know. It's we'll do it in deference to a friend of mine whose last name is Quinn, a mutual friend of the show.
Yeah, VJ was wondering, Mike, what are you imagining the dynamic between the two is? Are they friends? It seems like the little fairy's used to this.
Childhood best friends. That's what I'm thinking of, is they've been friends for like as long as anybody can remember. And, you know, they know each other really well. And I have to maintain my screen direction, because I am not doing that with maintain my eye line.
Always important.
I think that's one of the things that when I'm supervising storyboards, that's probably like my biggest gripe with a lot of artists, is that they don't maintain their eye lines, and that's really important, you know, to make sure that people are looking in the places that they should be looking, because, you know, and I may have said this on this stream before, but like, you never want to have the audience thinking about your filmmaking, only the film itself, right? Because it's so much easier to keep an audience than it is to lose an audience and win them back, you know? Because let's face it, everybody watches TV now. They've also got their phone out, right? They've also got this thing that they're competing with. So the more engaging your stories are and the less mistakes you make to lose your audience to the phone, then you're gonna keep the momentum of your film going.
Yeah, it's interesting because just little details like that, like eye line or screen direction, they're super important, because people can just get really confused over something like that. You know, it's like you almost take for granted some of those things sometimes, but
yeah,
they make a big difference getting them right.
It's true. Let's get some splash over there. Yeah, getting it right. You realize how much like effort goes into a lot of this stuff, you know. And just how kind of careful you've got to be with and conscientious with your filmmaking. I think we'll just do one more thing of here, where that one hits, and if we had more time to draw, because we're rapidly running out of time, and then hopefully this will come to a satisfying conclusion. But right now, I'm wondering if we're gonna make it. We'll put some little fairy dust dealios over here. And
Yeah, I see you're using a lot of animation principles in your boards, like secondary action, follow through, squash, and stretch. How important would you say that stuff is to storyboarding and to be thinking about that stuff while you're drawing your storyboards?
I think it gives the board a little bit of life. I think it gives it an extra little oomph that makes it feel like it's not just a comic page, you know? Especially if you're doing like board animatics, like you're looking for anything that's going to give you that little bit of edge to feel like, you know, it's alive.
What to kind of think about the theme of the month for Storyboard Pro, when do you usually find yourself adding color to your storyboards?
Only if I need it for a specific effect. Only if I need it for, like, you know, say like we're doing an action board and there's a, you know, vampire and they're going to open the curtain and the light's going to come in, or they're blowing a hole in the wall and there's the light coming in to kill the vampire. You can have that, you know, lovely, colorful dawn, you know, shining, or drop some tones or whatever, to make that feel a little bit more, you know, just to draw attention to what needs to have its attention drawn toward it. Color is great for that, especially, you know, really strong warm colors. Like if you want to direct somebody's eye, like red is the way to go. That's why all of the boards that you see, a lot of them, the arrows are in red, because it's a way to differentiate and say, this isn't necessarily supposed to go on screen, but I'm drawing your attention to the fact that this arrow means that this character's turning around, you know, or walking, or any number of different things.
Yeah, like painting boards, I feel like there's a delicate line to be walked there, because if there's too much color, it's just too noisy. It's hard to know what you're supposed to look at right away. But I don't know. I find color. I generally will use color for I find myself coloring objects. Right, so you think of like the ruby slippers in Wizard of Oz. It's like the first thing I go to, and I think of like a colored prop. But stuff like that, like if there's a prop that's super important and you want it to be seen very quickly, you could think about adding color to that. I probably would.
Yeah, so in this case, we're gonna get a red arrow. We're just gonna drop it on here. So she's gonna come up and be like, "Hey, friend, what's bothering you today? You know, how can I help?"
When you find yourself using stage directions like that with arrows and stuff, like when would you say that's okay in boards?
I know that they use it a lot in like shipping boards. Like when you've got everything done, the animatic's done, everything's done, and then you have to do a final pass over the storyboard to make it crystal, unequivocally clear, that you can put the arrows in there and, you know, make sure that somebody that's looking at the board and animating to the board will know, oh, this is a turnaround, this is a shake here, this is, you know, a tremble or whatever. We call it board speak a lot of times. So in the pre, you know, like thumbnails and stuff, board speak is great. For animatic purposes, no board speak whatsoever. But if you're doing like after the initial animatic phase, then you can put the board speak right back in. The guiding arrows, anything is going to make it a little bit more clear for animation. Ah, ah.
All right, Mike, another question for you from VJ. What shows have really kept you in the moment that you have recently enjoyed?
Oh, what shows have kept me in the moment?
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah. Arcane really kept me in the moment. That one I really liked that show. I think it was very strong in storytelling. I think it was very strong. It's exceptionally strong in its visuals. What about you, Chris?
I'm trying to think of what I've watched recently. I've been so busy recently. Arcane wasn't really recent, was it?
No, it wasn't super recent, but the season 2's coming out.
It is. Yeah, I did really like Arcane. I thought they did a really good job. They kept me in it until Imagine Dragons played their music number in the middle of it. I was like, what is happening?
Oh yeah, the Believer song, right?
Yeah. But it was on brand for League of Legends, so it's fine. It was a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of I've actually been going back and watching like rewatching a lot of animated films I haven't watched in a long time recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. One that I watched recently again was Song of the Sea by Cartoon Saloon.
Oh yeah, Song of the Sea. That was a good one.
That one, I I, I always enjoy that when I watch it, but that one's just something about the art style and the characters are just so like human. The kids, you can relate with
Yeah.
them really easy, and that I don't know. That really kind of keeps me in the moment, like you would say. It's all down to character. All of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of subject matter that you have to be really in tune with too, that you really jive with. Because, like, it can be an engaging movie, but if it's not necessarily about a subject that you're into, like, you're probably not going to be all that interested. So some people like action movies, some people like rom-coms, some people like dramas, and you're not gonna if you don't like rom-coms and you like action movies, despite the fact that rom-com is really well made, you still might not be into it, and the same goes for other genres of film.
All right, Mike, we're at 9 minutes left. I'm being asked if you can play the automatic.
Well, we need a satisfying resolution, I think. First,
We do. We're not quite there yet. We've just
we're not quite
gotten
there yet. It's like, oh,
very
friend,
sad.
I'm never gonna fit into two worlds, and it should be. I'm kind of wondering if it's like, you're right, dear, you're not.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
There's a reason we grow banana leaves.
Yeah, right. Why do we fall down, Master Bruce? So we can pick ourselves back up again. Look like she was going to poke her in the eyeball.
Hey, maybe that's their dynamic. Right.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah, I guess one last call for while Mike's finishing up this automatic in the last couple of minutes we have, getting the resolution. If there's any other questions that you want, that you're dying to have Mike answer, send them in now.
Yep. You'll have to wait a whole month if you don't do it now.
All right, Mike. One last quick question in the last couple of minutes we have. What is your favorite challenge?
My favorite challenge is probably from that one pizza place where they like, if you eat this, like the large one, you get it free.
There you have it. That's Mike's favorite challenge.
I don't know if that pizza place really exists. I was just making something up. I don't know. Sometimes composition. Composition is always a challenge. Getting that cinematic sense right. I mean, it takes trial, and it takes error, and it takes a lot of practice, and sometimes chasing that journey is really the fun part. Okay, so here we go. Let's play this from the top. All right, we have our let's go Shift M, which will bring us back into the full screen. And I'm sorry, maybe I didn't work in full screen this entire time, so you guys are looking at little bitty picture inside a little bitty picture. But my shoulder has been kind of messed up still, so I'm kind of trying to baby it a bit. So we have a fairy type creature flying toward this huge tree and just disappearing into it. And then we have another creature, la 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 la. And she's just a little fairy, and then thunk. This big friend comes along and just throws her off. She politely stops. And I think, some of our sizes kind of morphed a little bit during this. So bear with me here as she's now gigantically huge. And she's like, "Oh, what's wrong, dear? What's got you so upset?" "Oh, I'm an elf and I'm a fairy, but I and she's like, "Oh, I don't fit in anywhere." And then she just opens up her hat. This is also services as an umbrella, and she splashes over and she's like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. It's so hard. I know it's hard, dear. And it's probably going to still be hard for a long time to come. But one thing is, you have got to stop crying on me.
There you have it, folks.
I think that's the fastest resolution that we could come up with. All right, cool. Thanks, everybody, for your suggestions. This has been fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll hope to see you again some other time.
You have a part that you're supposed to read still, Chris.
Wow, really?
Yeah, there's like a whole section.
Here we go. I didn't scroll down that far. Well, Mike, thanks for joining us once again for the Collaboratory.
Now it just sounds forced. You got to bring the gusto on that one.
Okay, here we go. Do you have any projects or topics that you would like to draw our attention to, Mike?
Yes. All of you should go and download the app Treasure Party from the company PlayQ. My new company, the Projectorium, was invited very graciously to work on some art for that app. So we did some art for a spooky season. So download the app, get your match 3 on, and download you some collectible cards. It's a really fun game. It kind of like, so, all right, to be completely transparent, I used to think that match 3 games were just a waste of time. And I would give my wife a bunch of grief about it. But I started playing Treasure Party, and I actually really liked the strategy element of it. Because you only have so many turns to get what you need to get done, and my strategy brain really kicks in. So it's a fun game. It's really cute and fun, and we did some art for it, and I'm super excited. I always get super excited when something that I work on comes out, and I want to share that with people and let them get a sense of what we did on it, and that we're really proud of it.
Sweet. Well, I guess we'll all be sure to check that out. And thank you to everybody that joined us. And if Mike could draw this little story about this elf and this fairy in 90 minutes. Imagine what you could draw in a 21-day free trial of Storyboard Pro that you can get at toonboom.com. And there you'll also find free videos tutorials at learn.toonboom.com.
Yep.
So I think 3 weeks is, from my personal experience, that's enough time to get through a decent chunk of storyboards. So
say a 14-page script, maybe.
A 14-page script, maybe. So, and if you're looking for more interviews, be sure to visit blog.toonboom.com for articles about storyboarding, animation, and 2D games. Until next time.
And remember, there's also lots of previous episodes of Collaboratory. You can go on YouTube, you can go on the Twitch channel, and you can watch other episodes and get even more out of them, hopefully.